Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Book to Block, the series where I bring my fantasy novel to life in Minecraft, one block at a time. In today's episode, like I mentioned in the previous episode, check those out if you haven't seen them yet, I'm doing a planning episode. To start off, I built a little bit of a planning room, as you can see here, just to keep myself organized whilst building this world. It'll have like a to-do list over here. I've got a world map started here. As you can see from episode 1, I built this mountain range here. You can see the shape a bit better now instead of on the ground. Here you can see the little trees that I placed down in episode 2 of the build. For now, it is in the top rightish over here. Over time, as I build further out into the lands, I might need to shift this up or over, depending on the directions I go for the builds. As I mentioned, I got this to-do list here. I've already added a couple things to do, like roughing up the plains. Today's going to be the planning of the marking of the villages and other things like that. I will also choose the city location for the volcano city and plan for where the forest will go. Next over here is my little teleport hall. So throughout the series, it'll be difficult to go from one build to another just by flying, even with the insanely fast 1000% speed. So I built this teleport hall. For now, I've just got this one, which is the Frostcrag Peaks, which is the mountain range that I built in episode 1. For now, I'm gonna just decorate them just plainly with the block palette I used. For now, it's like the deep slate tuff and then the moss. And then I plan to add a bit of snow for the mountain peaks. And then here's just a command block that'll teleport me up there. Later on, I plan to have each one have its own individual room, a little deeper in, so that it'll have multiple teleports per room for the smaller areas within the build for like key locations. For now, let's head on up and start planning. As I mentioned in the last episode, I've been working on the forest in between. In my spare time, I've made it a little bit more dense, adding some more trees, and expanded it a little further along the range. For now, this is about far as I've gotten between episodes, but then as you also can see, I've also been working on the terrain. I've been playing around with different techniques on getting it to look, instead of the flatlands, more like a natural plains, seeing how like if a smooth works better or if it's a little bit more random. Of course, when I add more things like the tall grasses or pathing and rivers and such, it'll look a lot better. But for now, this is how I plan to just play around, see what I can get for the roughening up of the plains. All right, let's get on to the planning. So the first place I wanted to plan out is this area over here, which is going to be the starting village. I chose the northeastern side of the mountain range because that is where it is in the book. So over here in the mountains, a little deeper in, I flattened out the area to make it easier to build on, make it more logical for a place for these dwarves to settle down in for their mines. So I'll go over into the Axiom mod again. This is going to be very useful for this. And it has this useful text thing here. So you right click on a point, I'm going to bring it up a little bit. First, I'm going to grab a block that I want to use while writing. So nice, obvious red concrete. And now I can type over here. So starting, I want to make sure I select this so it's using the right one. So starting village. I can move this around, and this will just be a nice way of placing this firm. So now if I go over here, it's physically here, so I know that this is going to be the starting village here. All right, so the next location over here in the west of the build. So over there was the starting village. So over here is more of the western side. You can see the setting sun. So over here, I'm going to have the tunnel that'll be the way from getting inside this region to outside to the world for training and other traveling places. So start off, grab our thing again here and just tunnel. Move it over, and for this one, it matters the direction. Before it was like this, so now I want it to go in this direction, so negative Z direction, and paste that in. So that's another place done. All right, back over to this side by the starting village. I really like these steep cliffs, the ones that I built in the very first episode right away. So I think I'll have this as where I put the waterfall, because in the story, the main character leaves his starting village along this way and towards a down place so he can get onto the plains. So over here I want to have a waterfall and maybe a little pond or a little lake up on top of here where it feeds into this waterfall, so they can maybe go over like a little bridge in the forest I planned over here. So go over to here and waterfall. Change the direction. Let's go for this one. There we go. And paste that in. So I'll have to think about how this lake is going to be like size-wise and where it's going to end. So I'll have to adjust these holes so it's not this entire area, as well as having a forest that the character can walk through. So I'll have to flatten out this area maybe a little bit back here, have the lake out in the front here, and then maybe his travel path will go around the lake here. All right, now to recap where we've already planned our locations. So as I mentioned, up here in the top right, so the northeast, is the starting village. Over here to the west is the tunnel. And up here near the starting village will be the waterfall. So now I need to decide, where do I want to put the large city that'll go somewhere in the center here, which is the volcano city. So I don't want it to be directly in the center, which was this point. Now that it's not a perfect circle, there isn't technically a direct center, but I don't want it to be too centralized. I want it to be within this area, obviously, but I want to also give it enough space away from things so it's not maybe right next to the starting village, so it's more of a long trek for the main character to get to this as his second point. So I'm thinking maybe lower down over here. So over here back in the world, you can see that's where I planned the tunnel. So somewhere around this area around here will be where the large volcano city will go. So now time to mark that off. Main city. Let's rotate that around a little bit and raise it up into the sky. Again, I might adjust these depending on proximity to different things. See over here, so this is this side of the mountain. So it's enough away from that so it's not completely centered, but it's also not too close to this tunnel. And then if we head on all the way over to this side, down there is where the center is. So that's the center of where the original circle went. But if we head over and over here, you can see there's the starting village, the waterfall, and then there's the main city over there. So it gives enough distance between things so it's not all too crowded and has enough space for other things in between, like villages and such. Alright, now that I know where the main city is going to be, I can add something to this waterfall. So since we'll have the waterfall coming down here, it'll go into a nice stream that'll go across the land here. So I want to mark off a little bit of the area. So here's the waterfall, something around here. And then just kind of want to adjust. You want it to flow a little bit, maybe make some turns. And then perhaps we could have it come into a large lake. I don't want it to be too close to the city because it is a volcano, so that would just evaporate all the liquid around. Don't want it to be a boiling lake. So maybe just something around this area. And it'll come into a nice lake, and then we can have a village or two surrounding it, using it as sort of where they started their village on this nice body of water. Alright, so back onto this map here where I'm tracking everything. So I've added in the city and then the lake here. So from the waterfall to the lake, there'll be a nice little river connecting the two. And then for the city, I placed it around here so it's nice and far from the starting village. And then kind of close to the tunnel, making it an easy trading area for everyone from outside this area to travel through the tunnel to the city for trading and such. Next planning will be kind of the other villages, because it's not just going to be one village and one city. I'll have maybe a village based on this lake, along the river maybe one near the city on the outskirts that relies on the city, and then other ones like the starting village where they're on the mountain range. They don't matter as much for their location because they're not integral to the story, but it'll be more for just populating the world overall. Another thing I want to work on is more forests. As you can see here, these darker green patches. This is the area that I showed earlier where the forest I've been building in between episodes. So those ones are just on the little hills in front. So I'll continue that around all the way around the edge of the plains here. But then I also want a more of a dense forest. Around the lake and the waterfall, like the base where the river will go, I'll have a sparse forest surrounding that area because it'll be a good place for that to grow near the water source. But for a more dense forest, I'm thinking up here, kind of cutting off the village from the plains. I don't want it to be too easy for the village to access the plains. I want them to force to go all the way around through this forest I planned over by the waterfall, and then maybe down over here, which will be maybe a nice path down to the plains, easy to get to the city. So having this forest here will be another barrier, making this path down around the mountain range more logical. Alright, back into Minecraft now, so we can see the starting village, waterfall, here's the lake, this was where the river will connect it to, up the render distance so you can see most things all at once now. So we have the main city here, the tunnel over here, that's where I've started the forest from last time, and then here's going to be the path from the main city, the lava river, so to speak, into the mountains where it'll be a hole where it'll all flow down into a mysterious area, which will be talked about more in a later episode. I won't decide on the path right now because I want to make the decision when the city is built and I can kind of see where the main spout of lava will flow out from. Back over to here to plan out the forest. So I've already started with where the river will kind of go. I don't want to overshadow it with the forest, so I've shifted it over a little bit. So we'll place in the marker of the forest, place that, and to here. So that is the main planning of each of the locations in the world. So it'll help kind of show where everything will be. I can sort of start planning, maybe work on the terrain a little bit to accommodate certain areas, like I mentioned up here. Right now it is very choppy and not much can really get through here. I'll reload so we can see it a little bit better. So the starting village, as I showed earlier, I've flattened out a little bit so they can build in here. But then the path to kind of get through here is not the easiest. So I'll either build in like rope bridges in between, or I might just adjust this mountain range, raise this bit up so it's an easier incline. And then over here for the waterfall, I'll plan out where I want the lake that's up here, the basin that holds the water for the waterfall. I don't want it to be this entire area, so I might raise these areas here to kind of cut off to capture all the water in these areas. And then I might extend this back a little bit further so I have a flat area for the forest for the main character to travel through. And then along this path, I'll have to work my way through here, raise up some bits, lower some bits to make it a possible path through here. And then have to decide when I want it to kind of slope down into here so it's a nice path to get out into the plains, and then head over to the city. So here's the main city location over here. So I'll have to make plans for the path, the most traveled path for anyone that's up in the mountain range, how they plan to come down so that they can visit the main city. All right, back down into our planning room. So we'll go over to our to-do list, and today, so I've marked out the villages, waterfalls, and streams. I've chosen the general city location. I've chosen the space for the forest. So 3 out of my 5 completed. Now for over here on this side, I've got a little bit of a progress tracker. So I've done the forest planning and the mountain range. So that's kind of the progress I've made over on so far, with the forest on the edge and then the full mountain range with some updates to be coming for depending on when I need them. And then the work in progress here is just everything I mentioned today in today's planning episode. So the village, the big forest, the waterfall to the lake and river, the main volcano city, the mountain forest, so that's the one that's up on the side here by the waterfall, and then the roughening of the plains. So with all of that, we'll have to slowly pick away at that in the following episodes. We'll choose one for the next one and just start working away at those. All right, I think that'll do it for today's episode. Again, it was kind of more of a planning episode, so not much physically was done, but I think planning is a very important part for a story like world like this, because you need to know where you're going, otherwise you'll kind of just bumble your way through without any vision or plan for the future. If you enjoyed and are looking forward to future episodes where maybe a bit more will be getting done within the world, please leave a like and subscribe so you'll know when the next episode comes out. Until next time.